Alright everyone, Cowboy Trades here. Welcome back to the channel for another update on Bitcoin. So what is happening right now? Bitcoin is dumping. We just had a flash crash down 5% in only a few hours. What are these technical analysis patterns that I've got my eyes on right now? What are their price targets? And more importantly, what was this key news event which allowed us to have this flash crash in the first place? Well, if we start off with the news, before diving into the TA, you can see if we overlay this tweet from Watch a Guru, it's very unambiguous as to what happened. We had this key news event and the markets flash crashed afterwards. What happened? Well, Binance and Binance's CEO, CZ, has just been sued by the US CFTC over alleged regulatory violations. If you didn't know, the CFTC is the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. They filed this lawsuit against Binance and CZ on Monday in the Federal Court of Chicago. And if we scroll down, you can basically see the report states that the CFTC is suing Binance for allegedly breaking trading and derivatives rules. So it's not looking good. Binance has had a lot of FUD recently, and it looks like more is coming their way. The Fed is after them, the CFTC is after them, and when we did have this news event, you can see the markets proceeded to have this flash crash. So what is next? Let's dive into the technical analysis for today. What we have is, over on the 4-hour time frame, you can see we have a diamond top formation that has formed. These diamond tops normally form after a sharp rally to the upside. We form these top patterns. They kind of look a little bit like a Bart pattern, except they fit beautifully into a diamond. These have a high probability of breaking down to the downside, and as you can see, that is exactly what we've done. Now, this specific diamond top formation isn't something I've talked about on YouTube in the past few days. It's just started to look like it was beautifully forming over the weekend, so do be sure to follow me over on Twitter, because while I wasn't posting this weekend, the markets were chopping sideways. There wasn't really too much to update while we were just going sideways here, but when I did see this pattern, I did post it over on Twitter at 618_cowboy. So make sure you come and follow me over on Twitter, so when I'm not posting on YouTube, you can collect my new thoughts on the markets as they do develop. But what have we got playing out? We had this news event, CZ, Binance is getting sued. We're having this flash crash to the downside right now. Quite a lot of volume stepped into these markets, and as you can see, if we pull up the EMA ribbons, the BTC USD pair has just beautifully pushed up and more or less retested previous support from this diamond top formation as resistance. We've retested the long-term moving average on the 4-hour EMA ribbons as resistance, and you can see the 4-hourly short-term moving average of the EMA ribbons is heavily starting to come down to the downside. So you can definitely expect a bearish flip on the 4-hour EMA ribbons in the next 24 to 48 hours. The 1-hour time frame has already fired a short signal as we have crossed bearish. So once again, not looking too good. Now, there's not a particular price target associated with a diamond top formation, although it's very much looking like this diamond top formation could also be a Bart pattern with a price target down at 24,000. So this is really what I see playing out right now for BTC USD. If we do come over to our next chart, over on the 4-hour time frame, we of course talked about this in my most recent video. We are screwed if this happens. Now, while this wasn't the main topic of the video, we did talk about this rising wedge. You can see it in the thumbnail, and we have proceeded to break to the downside of this. In fact, we have now taken out the lows that were formed on Wednesday, the 22nd of March. So we may be starting a new downtrend, proceeding with lower lows and lower highs across the market. Do ignore this quick liquidation grab. This didn't happen on the rest of the market. So what we really have is highs, lows, lower highs, preceded by another lower low. So as you can see, we are bouncing back a little bit at this moment in time, so do expect a lower high to start forming definitely before we do come to the $28,000 region. The price target of this rising wedge that we have broken down to the downside is technically 25,500, so you're seeing a little bit of beautiful confluence coming into this pattern over here. However, what I've typically noticed in my trading history is that rising wedges, when they do break to the downside, they do love to return to where these originated. So around about 24,000, the price target of the rising wedge that I've personally got my eyes on is going to come into beautiful confluence with what we've got down here with this Bart pattern slash diamond top formation. Now, there's a few other price targets that you can keep your eyes on in the immediate short term from then. Like I said originally, 25,500, and we will talk about this exact exact price target a little bit later on in the video when we get into the higher time frames. But we have 25,000 in confluence with moving averages we'll talk about later, 25,500 being this price target, and also this huge range at 25,000, which was previous resistance. This is definitely looking like a magnet zone to keep your eyes on for Bitcoin in the immediate short term. Now, let's move on to the higher time frames. We've looked at the 4-hour time frame. If we come over to the daily, we've talked about this before, but this just keeps on getting stronger and stronger and stronger. We do have regular bearish divergence playing out. Regular bearish divergence is where in the price action you have highs, higher highs, higher highs, higher highs, higher highs, higher highs, and higher highs. And if we come down to the oscillator, you can see the oscillator makes highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs. You get the gist of things. This is a very, very strong pattern which has literally been playing out now since right here. This has been playing out for 73 days. 73 days of regular bearish divergence, while the oscillator has literally come up to overextended on the RSI on the daily. It's looking like we've got a lot of room to move to the downside. And if this is finally the top for Bitcoin, then this regular bearish divergence breakdown is going to be only just starting. But we've talked about this before. We don't need to go into too much detail. It really is as simple as that. What we can also look at is a new divergence which has just started to form in the past 2 weeks. Now, do take this one with a slight grain of salt. This one may just be starting to develop. This one may not come into fruition. I do just want to point this one out. While I do see it, we do only have 2 candle bodies worth of data associated with this divergence. So once again, even though this is on the weekly, I do currently think this daily divergence playing out is more important. But we'll keep you up to date on this one because this is starting to form, at least right now. You can see that the price action on the weekly time frame is starting to make highs and lower highs, indicative of hidden bearish divergence. And we can see on the oscillator that we are pushing up higher and higher and higher. So our oscillators are pushing up, becoming more overextended, but the price is coming to the downside. This is known as hidden bearish divergence. So on the weekly, we potentially may be starting to form hidden bearish divergence. On the daily time frame, we are definitely forming a very, very strong case of regular bearish divergence. So we've got divergences here and there, and once again, like I said, take the weekly one with a grain of salt because we do only have 2 data points associated with this. But even if we're taking away the weekly hidden divergence, you can see that the oscillators right now, the stochastic is almost at 100, the MFI is at 71, very overextended, just like the stochastic, and the squeeze momentum indicator is extremely overextended right now. I mean, we haven't been in green like this since Bitcoin was round about this level here, coming very close to the top, round about 55,000. Sometimes these stochastic flips in bear markets do happen, although it is not very, very common. This is definitely a huge, huge, huge divergence that we are having right now at this moment in time. This is definitely a huge, huge overextension that we are seeing in the markets right now. And with these divergences starting to form, this is telling us that the price action is maybe not as strong as a lot of people are thinking. Now, before we do dive into our final charts, I want to break up the technical analysis by just taking a quick dive into some on-chain data. I have looked at the whale wallets. Whale wallets are still not buying. They're really just sitting on the sidelines. Retail wallets are buying at this moment in time. So when we come over to the Bitcoin ratio of retail to institutional addresses, this is very close to pushing up to a new all-time high once again, indicative that this is a retail-driven market. If you want to read more about this and how it will affect the price action, you can read on the right side of the screen. But what you really need to know is this entire bull run that Bitcoin just experienced from back in 2021, this was an institutional-led market. The blue ratio went to the downside as institutions were buying and the price pumped to the upside. Since we have broken into this bear market, you can see this ratio has just been skyrocketing, indicative that, you know, institutions aren't as interested in buying Bitcoin right now as retail traders are. Now, if we come over to the Bitcoin NVT, also known as the network value to transactions ratio, this really tells us when Bitcoin is overvalued. This takes the Bitcoin price and divides it by the Bitcoin trading volume denominated in US dollars. The NVT typically tends to go in the opposite direction of the Bitcoin price. You can see major spikes like in 2014 proceeded with meltdowns to the downside. Spikes in 2018 called this top overextension before breaking down into new lows. And we have had another series of spikes which have led to some rather significant drawdowns in Bitcoin's price history. We have kept you up to date on this in some of our most recent videos. videos. We haven't actually gone up any higher than our last videos, but what you can see is the NVT is starting to break down, and sometimes, like for example, if we come over to what happened in 2018, the NVT topping on this massive overextension was actually a sign that the final capitulation was due to come in for Bitcoin, which is something that I've been calling for a while. I do believe we are one final brutal capitulation away from potentially bottoming for Bitcoin, but that of course does mean that we do have to take out the 16,000 low. I think 14,000, 12,000, maybe even 10,000 is on the table. However, as I have been discussing on the channel with my DCA plan, I started buying at 25 in $1,000 increments. I have bought at 16,000. I will not wait to buy at 10,000. If we come down to 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, I will buy at all of these levels, just like I've been buying since 25k. I have been on the sidelines on my DCA plan since Bitcoin hit 16,000 down here. So if you have been following, the Cowboy family, we basically bought the exact bottom in this market, and since then we've been sitting on the sidelines. I'm not going to be DCAing up here at 30,000 when I was buying at 25 down to 16. So I'm waiting for lower levels. Now, let's wrap up today's video. So the major takeaway is we've obviously formed some pretty bearish patterns in the past week or so for Bitcoin, and these patterns were booted to the downside mainly due to this news that Binance and CZ are getting sued again. So once again, we're seeing a lot of FUD in the cryptocurrency market, and while I have given you a plethora of price targets throughout this video and a lot of different opinions based on different charts, divergences, oscillators, moving averages, all of that good stuff, I want to wrap up everything in one very simple train of thought. So where are the major levels I've got my eyes on for Bitcoin? The 200-week moving average, 25,500. This is a level I've got my eyes on. 25,500 is also in confluence with this price target of the rising wedge. Now, 25,500 is only a tiny bit higher than this 25,000 range, which is definitely something that you need to keep your eyes on, as I think this is a magnet zone. Underneath 25,000, we've got the rising wedge base at 24,000, and beneath then we do have this major area of liquidity traded in the market round about 23,000. So what does that mean for you? 25,500 is the major price target I would keep your eyes on. Underneath that, 25,000. Then it gets very simple, 24,000, and then coming down to 23,000. These are the price targets I've currently got my eyes on for Bitcoin. So for today, my friends, that's all I've got. Apologies for not making any videos over the weekend in the past few days. But really, if we were looking at the markets, what happened over the weekend, we were just chopping sideways, and my thoughts did not change whatsoever from my past few BTC videos. And also, my altcoin videos that I was warning you that these major moves were coming, these are starting to happen right now. So I will put out some updates for them. But over the weekend, we were more or less just chopping sideways, so there was nothing to update. Really, I just spent the weekend doing a little bit of training, some test cutting, Tamashigiri, all that good stuff. Like I said, sometimes there will be times where the markets just chop sideways and there's not much to update. These are times where I do post a little bit more over on Twitter at 618_cowboy, where I do share my thoughts as they do develop in the market. So make sure to follow me at 618_cowboy. But for today, my friends, I will leave it here. If you enjoy my content, as always, let me know down below by leaving a like and a comment. Share the videos with your friends. Click the join button if you want to become a member today and further support the channel. It's been your boy Cowboy Trades. I am out. Peace.